Inconsistency kills brands. Customer experience, my definition of customer experience is it is about every interaction somebody has with your business through any channel at any time. It's not the contact center, it's not customer service, it's not the stuff that you do afterwards. It flows through your entire business. And we're going to explore that topic in a bit here. And why I think it's a secret weapon is that in most businesses, small or large, most of the time, customer experience is undervalued. It's not thought about as having the commercial power that it has, and often it's thought as the garnish on the salad rather than the main ingredient, if that makes sense. So this is about bringing it into thinking about it as a key ingredient in your business, whether you're a one-man business or whether you're a 500 people business or whether you've got ambitions to be even bigger than that. This should form part of your kind of thinking in there. So why should you listen to me? Hang on, is my little clicker thing working? There we go. Yeah. Why should you listen to me? So just really quickly, as I said in my editing, I've been involved in customer experience now for 30 years, probably more than that. My dad had a family business. I was involved in the family business when I was very young. So I observed what was going on. I didn't know what I was observing at the time, obviously, but looking back now, I can see some of the lessons that I learned just being around my dad and the family business. And I basically built my career from frontline to the C-suite. So I started off, I worked in McDonald's, I worked in Tesco's on the checkout, I worked in a contact center, and it was in that contact center in banking that I really started to build out my career, built on a key principle, which is, and you'll see the Ted Lasso poster here in the background, it's the Walt Whitman quote, which is, be curious, not judgmental. So I always had this thing in me about wanting to know what the bigger picture was. How does this all fit together is my modus operandi. Like, why does this work this way? And what's the big picture on the box of the jigsaw, not just the pieces of the jigsaw that I have? So I worked my way around the business, and I worked in marketing and sales and business development and all these different kind of things. And anyway, built a career. I've worked across lots of sectors, both as an employee and a consultant. So I have both sides of in there. Most recently, I was at National Express as their chief customer experience officer. I was there for 8 years. I left in July. I set up Dhruva Star in November last year. So I'm still quite young in the whole developing this business, but I'm really clear about the kind of difference that I want to make in the business that I work in. Founded Dhruva Star, and really quickly, the name Dhruva Star, and why I called it Dhruva Star, two reasons. One, Dhruva is the story of it's an Indian mythological story, and it's about a little boy who's a son of a king, and he goes through a set of challenges, and through his unwavering faith and fixed direction and resilience, he was transformed into the North Star. And the North Star is one of the key principles that I teach when I'm working with companies. And then a less, probably an equally important reason, but not baked in mythology, is my mum's name, and my mum's no longer with us, she died a long time ago, is Tara. And Tara in Hindi means star. So I put the two together, and that's where we came up with Dhruva Star. So that's the kind of name. So as I said, customer experience has been has been a thing that I've been passionate about for a number of years. My father had a business, my grandfather had a business as well. And funny story about my granddad, he had a business in Nakuru in Kenya, and he also had a business in Nairobi. He had a shoe store. And the shoe store, they would make boots by hand, leather boots. One of the biggest customers with the British Army. And this was during the days of the Empire. But the funny thing about my granddad was that he spoke very little English, broken English. If you walked into his store, whether you were a man or you were a woman, he would refer to you as madam. Hello, madam. Hello, madam. But it was his charm and it was his energy that brought customers coming back. My grandfather died when I was 5, so I don't really know him. But I know him through the stories that people tell about him. I know him through the anecdotes that come through my way. And he was in an area where there were other shoe shops delivering the similar sorts of products, but he was successful down to the relationships he built with his customers and the way that he was with customers. And that was my early thinking. And so what I really discovered in life is that people will forget what you say, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. If I was to ask each of you right now, and I'm not going to because we don't have time, but normally I would start a session with, tell me your greatest customer experience. I'm willing to bet that 90% of you would start with something that went wrong, how the company fixed it, and you would talk about how the company made you feel, not about the product or service that you bought in the first instance. 90% of the time, that's what happens. So what we recall is that feeling. And so the way I describe that is the product of customer experience is memory. Memory drives emotion, drives behavior, drives results. So those memories in each of those interactions, whether it's sales, whether it's operations, whether it's recruitment, whether every one of those touch points is a critical point in your customer's journey around how they create a memory of you and your business. And so how does that kind of fit into the grander scheme of things? So this is a really nice way of me describing where customer experience fits into the thing. So most people are familiar with marketing and branding, and they talk about that. When we start a business, we talk about what's our brand going to be, how are we going to go to market, how are we going to tell people about our business. We invest money in Google ads and all of these great stuff. And the relationship sits like this. Marketing is simply the invitation. So if you imagine you're organizing a party and you're sending out an invite, that's marketing. You're saying to people, come to my party, come to the thing that I'm doing. Now, we don't accept every invitation that we get, do we? We say yes to some and we say no to others. The ones that we say yes to, it's because there's a reason. And I think about as that the power of the brand. There is a reason. It's the person that's inviting you. It's the place. It's the thing. But there's something about that party that makes you say yes to that and no to everything else. But once you get to that party, it's the experience that you have there that decides whether you stay there for more than 10 minutes, or whether you stay 10 minutes, have your first drink, get your coat and leave. But it's the experience that drives that. And it's the experience that creates the memory and your association with what that party was like. So the next time that somebody invites you to that party, it helps and reinforces why you said yes. Does that make sense? So the customer experience, so my analogy for that is, if you're a comic book fan, just as Superman gets his power from the sun, your brand gets its power from customer experience. The bigger the gap between the reality of your experience and what your brand tries to be, the bigger problem you have in your business. The smaller that gap, the less problems you have. The bigger the gap, the harder your marketing has to work. You end up having to give away discounts and 2-for-1 offers and all of these things to try and attract people and to bribe them in, versus if you have a really great reputation and experience, your marketing works less hard because your brand has the power and does most of the work. And so just some real quick kind of numbers and stats to share with you. Customers are more likely to stick with a brand that delivers a positive experience. Customer experience is really your competitive differentiator in a crowded marketplace. You can try and compete on price, but if you look at what's going on in the supermarkets, the product is a product, it's on the shelves, and people are shopping on price. That's not where you want to be. It becomes transactional. It becomes a race to the bottom. Somebody's always going to do it cheaper than you're doing it. Your difference is the experience that you give people when they deal with you. That's your market differentiator. That's the story that your branding should be telling. That's the story that your interaction should be telling and confirming. 1 in 3 customers will leave a brand that they love after just one bad experience. Not one that they like, one that they love, one that they're a raving fan of after just one bad experience, which is why it's really important for you to understand where the leaks are in your bucket. And so another piece to share with you is that when I was training back in 1996 in banking, the trainer at the start of the training shared with us that for every bad experience somebody has, they'll go and tell 10 other people. That was in 1996. Imagine what that ratio is now. And imagine the speed at which somebody can pick up their device, tap out a review, write something about you, post it on a review site in seconds, and it goes to strangers in seconds. So the power really sits with the consumer now. The pendulum has shifted. The company no longer controls a narrative about the brand to the degree that which it used to. Actually, the proof is in the social proof, and it's out there in the pudding. And then finally, from a bottom line perspective, just a 5% uplift in your customer retention can make your business 75% more profitable. It is cheaper to sell to an existing customer, and it's cheaper to work with existing customers than to acquire a new one. That's just basic maths in business. And so your retention is really important. And then if you have great experience, they become advocates and part of your marketing engine and add to that organic stuff. So that's really the baseline I wanted to share to get people to go, what are we talking about when we say customer experience? It's across your entire business. What's the value of it in your business? You can see there are some compelling stats and arguments for why you should focus on it. But this presentation is about inconsistency. And like all great presentations, they include a beautiful story. And this is my beautiful story. So this is my wonderful family and friends. There are 3 families in there. So there's my wife, my daughter, and friends of ours. And we went to Dubai on holiday last year. Has anyone in this room ever been to Dubai? I can see, but if you haven't, it's a place worth visiting. But we went there last year and we stayed at this beautiful hotel, the Le Méridien in Minnesota. It's on Jumeirah Beach. Beautiful property, beautiful hotel. The holiday was going great. One of the things that we organized to do one morning was to go quad biking. And we went to Dubai in August. And if you know about the weather in Dubai in August, it's 40 degrees. It's hot. So you've got two choices. You either go early in the morning or you go late at night, because that's when it's coolest in the day. You do not go in the afternoon slot unless you want to melt. So we'd organized for this quad biking adventure. So we left the hotel at 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. It was about an hour's drive to the destination where this quad biking and desert safari stuff was going to take shape. Oh, we had the young kids with us. They were all hungry. We got them on a bus and we went out to this venue. And we arrived, and within a few minutes of arriving, we got the orientation for the quad biking. And my nephew jumped on a quad bike and sped off. And as he sped off, I suddenly saw him flip, and he came off the bike and the bike fell on top of him. And he had quite a nasty accident, which meant that he had to be rushed to hospital. He got a really bad cut in his leg. He was bleeding out. We had to call an ambulance and he got taken to hospital. That activity got cut short because all the kids were upset. We were all upset, and we went back to the hotel. And by the time we got back to the hotel, it was gone 10:30. Now, I should tell you, he's absolutely fine. There he is sitting in his bed, digging into some ice cream. He was fixed as right as rain, and he's just as annoying as he's ever been. So he's fine. He's on good form. But when we got back to the hotel, obviously we're all nervous and people are upset and stuff. And we wanted to get some breakfast for the kids because they were really hungry. So we went up to the reception because we could see that the breakfast restaurants were closed. And I approached the reception desk along with my friend at the same time. And the reception desk is probably no bigger than probably the length of this room. And there were two receptionists probably just a few yards away from each other. My friend went to the first receptionist and he asked her, told her what happened, and asked if we could get some breakfast. And she said, "I'm really sorry, sir. The restaurants are closed. There's nothing that we can do." The lady that I spoke to looked at me and she said, "First of all, is everything okay? Did you get your nephew into a hospital? We're really sorry to hear that he's had this experience in Dubai." Now, we hadn't booked this excursion through the hotel. They had no knowledge of it. But her first thought was, "Are you okay? Is everything okay? Can we help you with anything?" The second thing she said, "Hang on a second, let me just make a phone call." Picked up the phone, had a quick conversation, put the phone down and said, "Mr. Palmer, can you and your family go to the elevator, press floor 11. There'll be somebody waiting for you upstairs by our executive lounge, which is still open. They'll serve you breakfast and you and your family will, it's a smaller selection, but you can enjoy breakfast." And so I look at that and I say, how can you have a business with two employees in the same company, with the same training, with the same environment, but yet two different experiences, right? Like how does that happen? But that happens in businesses all of the time. All of the time. It shouldn't depend on who you speak to or what time of day you call, or whether you call on email or whether you use telephone or whether you go into the store or whatever. The experience should be consistent, because those inconsistencies that people experience through those channels are what kills your brand. Those moments where somebody goes in and it's dependent on who it is kills your brand. So one of the concepts that I work with companies is about helping them to understand where those inconsistencies are and how they can start to fix them. And I have a framework that I share. I'm not going to go through the whole framework today, but I'm going to share two or three key concepts, and then we can drop into some questions towards the end if you like. So this is the entire framework that I have that we base it around. So define your North Star is about really, I'll go into that one, getting some customer insight, really listening to what customers are saying, your culture, your leadership, how you're setting out your design principles, how you're monitoring your ongoing performance, and then your governance and your quality assurance are the kind of things. But we're going to pick three of those key concepts. I'm going to talk about them this morning. Have any of you ever read Alice in Wonderland? Okay, so there's this point in the story where Alice meets the Cheshire Cat, and she's at a crossroads. And she asks the Cheshire Cat, "Which road should I take?" And the Cheshire Cat answers, "Where are you heading?" And she says, "I don't know." And then he says, "It then matters not." And one of the first things, and you'll be surprised, is that the amount of companies that don't know what kind of experience they want to deliver. They have no clear vision. They have no clear idea for what kind of experience they want to deliver to their customers. So the first thing to really work on is, what is the experience that you want your customers to have? And the way to think about it is, how do you want your customers to feel when they come into contact with you? What are the emotions that you would like them to have? So an example from a company that I work with was, I want them to feel like they can trust me. I want them to feel like they're valued. I want them to feel like that they care, and I want them to feel like we treat them as a human being. They're my 4 key emotions. That's what I want my customer experience to be like for the people that deal with me in my business. And so that formed the basis for his customer experience vision. So really spending that time to go, okay, so we're doing all of this. How is it that we want, when people come into touch with outside ideas, how is it that you want them to feel? When people first come into touch with Parent Money Coach, whether they're sending in an email inquiry or whether they're picking up the phone, when they get out of that interaction, how do you want them to feel? When they meet you in person, how do you want them to feel? We spend so much time thinking about our personal brand, but actually when they come into contact with you, are they feeling the way that your brand values and your marketing wants them to feel? So that there's a link there between your brand values and how you want that customer experience to be. So really spending that time and defining, where is it that you want to go? What is it that you want that customer to feel when they come into interaction with you? Because remember, how they feel then drives their forward behavior. It drives the results you get in your business. The second concept is then what I call freedom within networks. And this is a quote from Jill Scott, who was a former ladies England footballer. Probably, I think she's one of the most decorated and the top goal scorer for in the England ladies team. And she was on a podcast and she used this phrase. And what I liken this to is, rather than giving people rules, giving them frameworks. So again, one of the reasons why you get that inconsistency is if you don't give people clarity about what good looks like and guardrails in which to operate, they'll make decisions from their own perspective. Now, sometimes you get lucky because you have people in your business that have a really good set of personal values and they happen to share them, and they'll do the right thing and everything will pay off. They'll just make the right decision. But other times you'll have people in your business that have a different set of values from you, who might make a different decision, and it won't be consistent. But if you give people a shared set of principles to work with, they are more likely to make consistent decisions because they buy into that kind of thing. So I refer to these as design principles. So giving people a set of principles that in any time they're thinking about shaping that customer experience, this is what we're trying to achieve. And so when I was at National Express, the way that we rolled this out was to go, everything that you're designing should be based on making things simple, making things easy, making things stress-free, and ensuring that people feel like a human being. They're the 4 principles. So whatever you're doing, whether that's marketing campaign, pricing, designing a product, designing the website, whatever you're doing, they are the 4 fundamental principles that I want you to adopt whenever you're thinking about designing the experience. So simplicity is about things like removing jargon and acronyms and keeping language really simple. When you're offering people choice, not overbearing them with choice. If you ever watch Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, one of the first things he does in a restaurant to the menu is what? He simplifies it, right? He takes it down from, sometimes it's a novel that people have put together, all these dishes that they're really attached to, but he shrinks down the options to 1, 2, and 3. And so as human beings, we can't handle too much choice. It becomes overwhelming. So simplifying that choice, but also ensuring that people understand the differences between those choices is really important too. Ease is about customer effort. Human beings are lazy. We will choose the path of least resistance every single time. It's why we know that in order to get into shape, we have to eat better, exercise regularly, and look after ourselves. But we will still go and buy that lose weight in 30 days program. We'll still go and buy those miracle diet pills. We'll still try and fast track the system to try and get to our goal quicker because we want the path of least resistance. The same is true in your design. The easier you make it for somebody to do business with you, the more likely they are to do it. If you think about Amazon and you think about clicks to purchase, in 96, they started with about 7 clicks to purchase from the time you picked an item and put it in basket. Now you're down to what, 0 clicks? Because now you can just ask Alexa and she'll stick it in your basket for you. Or you just click on buy now and it's 1 click. So they've just looked at every point. How do we make it easy to remove things out there? Stress-free is then about signposting and helping people to understand what's coming next. If you think about Uber, Uber is simply a stress management device. You're still ordering a cab. The cab is still going to come and pick you up. But the fact that you can now see on a map changes the quality of that wait time because you can see that it's coming. You're less stressed. There's greater certainty. You know what's going to happen next. Whereas in lots of companies, they send people into a process and there's no indication of what's happening next. The signposting is really important. And the last thing is personalization in human. How many times have you called a contact center and they've asked you what your name is And then for the rest of the conversation, they never use your name. Like,
something else.
yeah. But simple things like making people feel human, use their name if you can, use things that you have to make them feel like a person. Don't treat them like an account number, a client. It's really that kind of human touch. We recently went to a restaurant, Six by Nico. If you've never been there, you should try it out. It's got great food, really great venue. When I booked, I told them that it was my 24th wedding anniversary. But when the maitre d' greeted us, they made no reference to it, didn't talk about it, and they just missed a really great opportunity. They could have used that data. All the time, customers are giving you little clues and little nuggets of information that you can use to personalize it, whether that's in your email communication, whether that's in the conversation you're having, or whatever it is. So that's the second piece. And then the final bit that I wanted to share with you was a thing that we often don't do enough of in businesses, and that is catching people doing the right thing. When I was working in McDonald's, part of our training back in the days when we used real money and notes was that when anyone gave you a note, you put it under an ultraviolet light bulb. Do you remember those that would check to see if a note was real or not? So we had it in the training, and we had it in the training. So it was a real transactional thing. Every day you'd put the note in, take it out, put the note in, take it out. And I remember the first time I put the note in and it shone up super ultraviolet, it was fake. And it was only a £5 note. And I was explaining to the customer, it's a fake note, you can't use this. And my manager came over and he supported me in the conversation, and it was all done with the customer. But afterwards, he took me to one side and he said, well done. That was really well done. Well done for spotting that note. And it was only a £5. It wasn't a lot of money. But him catching me doing that validated for me that was important. So the next time I changed that note, my association wasn't, this is just transactional, I just stick it in. There was value to that activity. And all the time in your business, whether again, you're a single person business, one employee, whatever, people are doing things, but catching people doing the right things and letting them know what does good look like and validating it for them is really important. We used a tool at National Express when I was there called Workplace by Facebook. It's one of these things that I implemented in the principle of seek forgiveness rather than ask permission. I was trying to explain to the board why I wanted to do this, and I just weren't getting it. So I did it anyway, and then just sought permission, sought forgiveness afterwards. But the important thing about that was we created this network internally where people shared stories around great customer experience across the business, and other people started to like it. And then the senior managers and leadership team were also on the platform, and they started to like and comment. And it told people what does good look like. It validated for people, this is important in this organization. So the three principles of set your direction, understand what you really want from a customer experience. What do you want it to look like? Create your design principles and your freedom and sort of your framework that you've got empowerment in that people can make decisions around. And the third thing, catch people do the right things. And if you do those three things, you are more likely to deliver a consistent set of experiences that will bring back your customers time and time again.